Arrested on Friday after police discovered a detailed plan to carry out a mass shooting at their school, according to the county sheriff. He says the 4 students were in the process of securing weapons, but that the plot was foiled when fellow students overheard them discussing the plan and reported it to a teacher. Thank God. This all comes just days after last week's massacre at Umpqua Community College in Oregon that left 9 students and the gunman dead. Today, the campus will reopen, but classes won't resume until next week. And now, disturbing new details are emerging about what played out in one of those classrooms before the gunman killed his victims. This account comes from a father of one of the survivors.
She remembers another lady that was called to the front, and the shooter says, if you will beg for your life, you will not die. Lacey's hearing all of this. The lady began to beg for her life, and apparently it wasn't good enough. He shot her. He called for another young man to come up front and said, you're the lucky one. You're going to live today. Everything that you need to know about me and what I'm doing is in my backpack. There's a flash drive in there, and it will give you all the information you need. She then heard another lady say to the shooter, I'm so sorry for what you've gone through. I'm so sorry that you've been hurt. And he said, and as Lacey would say, I quote, I bet you are, but it's not good enough. And with that, he shot her.
All right, so you know what? I saw a lot of news shows this week talking about this this weekend, and nobody has any answers. I mean, the president gets up and claims it's really easy, that if it's just Republicans,
No,
he did. It's just Republicans. If they just passed some legislation, things would be better. What I found in this shooting, Mike, seemed to be a realization, and it's whether it's these mass shootings or it's Chicago, where 60 people were killed in September. There are no easy answers. There are no easy answers. I read the New York Times piece yesterday and was trying to look for, okay, well, what legislation would work here and what? I'm not afraid of legislation, but you go through it. And there are no easy answers to any of these questions. I will tell you the one thing I did note, though, the one thing I noticed is that this guy knew that if he did this, things like this would happen, and he would be recognized, and they would write a manifesto. And I really would hope, and I'm sure that there's just something terribly wrong with this, but like I saw on Fox News yesterday, the graphic that we're 290 days in, Fox News Sunday, and we have basically more mass shootings than days of the year.
Yeah.
And I think in part it is an effort for people to get attention. I really wish we could stop giving the names of these people who are committing these heinous crimes in large part for the attention, because they go out in their twisted minds as folk heroes.
Look, there are no easy answers that are going to unlock whatever disease, whatever poison was in this guy's mind. We're not going to be able to answer that. Yeah. We are going to be able to address, or we ought to be able to address at some level, the fact that he had a 14-gun collection in his apartment. 14 guns, right, including the AR-15,
now,
an assault weapon.
Right. Why does he need that? We could do legislation on that.
I understand, but you read through everything. And again, you read through the Times article, and I'm trying to piece together, okay, well, what legislation would stop this guy from being able to purchase a gun?
Here's what his father says.
If you're kicked out of, I know, but here's the point, though.
What?
You read the Times article, you learn everything about this guy, and intelligent people that read that article came to the same conclusion that I came to.
He followed the rules when he bought the weapon.
Yes. He followed the rules.
Yes.
There was if we are going to stop this guy from buying guns because he got kicked out of the service or didn't make the service in 2008.
Everyone was bought legally.
Then we're going to, like 100 million people are going to be ineligible to purchase guns. Again, and it's something that Charles was saying the other day, there are no easy answers. So
Except, why is someone that young allowed to purchase that many guns, including some of these high-powered? Why is someone allowed to own?
It has nothing to do with his age.
Okay, so but let me just ask you: does it make sense to you that, I don't know, a 20-year-old is allowed to buy 25 high-powered assault weapons and keep them in his apartment? Does that make sense to you?
Well, you say allowed, Mika. What are you suggesting? Well, should the federal government say you can only have this many guns?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that someone should be able to own a complete, war chest in his apartment? Does that make sense to you?
Well, no, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Okay, well, that doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, but you can't cut me off there because it goes beyond that. What law are you going to pass? And that's the question. Everybody thinks they're easy answers. What law are you going to pass? I'm with you. We have to stop the school shootings. But what law? Do we ban people from buying more than 3 guns, 5 guns, 7 guns? Like, at what point do we say there's a Second Amendment, but it doesn't apply after you buy how many guns? And who determines that?
But there are examples of bills.
No, and this is the point. There are no easy answers. And tragedies like this happen. No, but that's a really good trick on your part. Debate trick to say, I'm not saying we should do nothing. But following up on the point made the other day, we aren't going to just do something to make us feel good, because people will keep getting gunned down in Chicago who has incredibly stringent gun control laws.
What I'm saying is there are hundreds of these shootings every year now. Hundreds of them.
Right.
You can't stop all of them with the same legislation, the same measures.
Right.
But some tightening of the supply, background checks, the gun show loophole,
tracking.
Right? In some of these cases, there are examples of guns that were gotten illegally or straw purchases. So you can't stop every tragedy, but it's also possible to stop some of them, I think, with some of these measures.
I'm not an absolutist on this, and I never have been an absolutist on this. I'll do what works. But, Mike, what works? Certainly we had after Newtown, we went on a rampage for a long time talking about background checks on this show. I support background checks. I support tightening up, doing whatever we can to stop the trafficking. But what legislation would have stopped what happened in Newtown and would have stopped what happened in Oregon?
None.
Or a gun ban, but no one's going to pass a gun ban.
None. Those weapons were purchased legally. He has 14 weapons. They were purchased legally. Now, you can get into all sorts of arcane safety measures that gun manufacturers could be forced by legislation to do. Trigger locks, fingerprinting, stuff like that. You can shut down gun shows, which ought to be done. The sale of guns at gun shows, which require very few background checks, if any. You can do stuff like that. But can you do something to prevent this guy, 26 years of age, from legally purchasing 14 weapons?
I don't think anything can happen now, but over time, if, I'm sorry, but a lot of different regulations are put into place, it does start to close in on the problem, including a national database, tracking these guns, tracking amounts of guns that are owned by people. I know it sounds completely constraining to members of the NRA, but we're going to do nothing?
It's not just
wait till it comes to your front door?
It's not just members of the NRA, though. Again, Mika, I think I've got the cred for going after the NRA, the leaders in Washington, D.C. with a vengeance after Newtown. So I sit here in fear of no one in the gun lobby. But if we're talking about saving lives, I'm with Charles the other day. We can't just reflexively do things because it makes us feel better. Like Mike said, so let's talk about Newtown in Oregon. If you're talking about fingerprinting, if you're talking about the sort of the gun locks and the things, by the way, that George W. Bush supported, that wouldn't have saved one of those precious children in Newtown, and it wouldn't have saved, most likely wouldn't have saved anybody in Oregon. So the question is, what do we do? And the president's talking about confiscating guns like they did in Australia. Well, that's never going to happen here.
Why?
Because we have a Second Amendment, and also you talk about a national registry. I mean, do we really trust the federal government to know where all the guns are? The same federal government that runs the IRS and is capable of doing what they're doing? I don't think most Americans would want
That's where we really
want confiscation or want the federal government to have a national database. If you buy a gun, the feds are going to know that what gun you bought.
Yes.
I understand
yes, actually,
that. I understand
yes.
that. I'm not arguing that.
A
with
gun
you, but
kills someone.
What's your gut reaction when you hear that there are more than 300 million weapons, guns?
I hear we have a system that's gone out of control. We've done nothing about it over years, and here we are.
That's
Yes.
crazy.
My gut reaction is,
crazy.
first of all, yes, that's crazy. But secondly, my real reaction is when the president stands up and just talks after every one of these things happens, my reaction is we need to get people together and figure out. That's all he does.
I don't think that's
Don't look at me
fair.
shocked. No, he just talks about it. All he
What
does
could he do?
is talk about it. He could be a leader. What could he do in Syria? What could he do all over the world? What could he do in Washington, D.C.? Force the issue. Sit down, and instead of pointing fingers at people, which he loves to do, sit down and try to work through this. Yes, the NRA will try to block him. The Republicans will try to block him. But maybe we make gains on local levels. Maybe we make gains on state levels. And I'm not just talking about gun legislation. I'm talking about real mental health counseling. This guy apparently sought help. You look at a problem. We've got all of these mass shootings every year. In Chicago, 60 people shot dead last month. We have to find a solution. But just waiting for a lot of white people to get killed and then holding a press conference and ignoring the 60 black people that get killed every month in Chicago.
I don't think that's what.
That is so true.
Oh,
we
my God.
all wring our hands when we see white people shot up. And every single night, black people are getting shot up across this country, and nobody's wringing their hands. How did we let pass that 60 people were gunned down in Chicago in September, the majority of them being black Americans?
I believe there were several
I
trips.
mean, we do that all the time. I've got, look
This
at
is
1, 2, 3,
Chicago
4, 5, 6
about
different
shootings.
papers here. Every day, the papers are filled with stories about violence around the world, violence in the
Right.
United States. I mean, you're right about the fact that they are the ignored deaths in this country, largely minority, largely in enclaves of various cities that very few people pay attention to in terms of schools, in terms of access to medicine, in terms of access to
Right.
grocery stores, and in terms of access to life, most
Right.
importantly. I know people who are afraid to let their young sons and or daughters at the age of 12, 13, or 14 years of age out of the house on weekends because of the areas that they live in, because of the dangers of
And
the
it's
street.
only gotten worse over the past year since cops have been put back on
But
their
you
heels.
can't get certain
in
cold
these
medicines over the counter.
very neighborhoods.
All right.
So there has to be an answer.
Yeah.
But cheap rhetorical tricks aren't going to get it done.
So can legislation